So welcome to Replenish, hope that sustains in the midst of adversity. This is a safe place where I'll invite special guests to share encouragement and insight to replenish us in the journey of raising kids from hard places. So whether you're an adoptive parent, kinship, foster, this conversation is for you. And I'm your host, Tristan McGee. So before, I'm just gonna, today we have Pam Parish, and she's going to join us for a conversation about battle-weary parents. And before we get started, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about who she is. I'm going to read her bio for you. Pam Parish is the founder and CEO of Connections Homes, an organization birthed out of her personal story as a mom to 8 daughters, 1 bio, and 7 adopted. They are all from various circumstances: foster care, aging out of foster care, adoption disruption, trafficking, and homelessness. So she can pretty much relate to every single one of you. She has more than 10 years of experience in foster care, trauma-informed care, and crisis parenting. She's also the author of 3 devotional style books. We'll list a link to her author page on Amazon, and one of the books that you might find most interesting is Battle Weary Parents. It's a devotional, and she also has a plan that has, I think it's 8 days on the U version. If you have that app, it's a really great one. I just finished it. She's a wife to her high school sweetheart, Steve, and they are the parents and grandparents of 8 young adult daughters, 3 son-in-laws, and 4 grandchildren. They live on a small 12-acre farm just outside of Atlanta, where all of their free time is spent with animals, in gardens, and around the fire pit. So Pam, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Tristan and Max, for having me. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. It's so great to be able to share with so many foster and adoptive parents who are all kind of experiencing the same thing we all are at the same time: social distancing and what that looks like in our new normal.
Yes. Yes. So Pam, why don't you start us off and tell us what started you in this journey of adoption in this whole world?
Oh gosh, that started back in 2006. We had moved to Atlanta, and we had 1 biological daughter. She was 11, and we had never been able to have any more biological children, and we'd always kind of thought about adoption, but just never did. I was an executive at a mobile technology company, and just, life. So we moved to Atlanta, and I found out about adoption from foster care, which I had never. I don't know how I'd lived all of my life without knowing that there were older kids in foster care, but somehow I had. And so we decided to go into foster care. We were going to adopt one child and add to our family in that way. And then somehow 7 years down the road, we ended up with adopting 7. And 5 of our girls came into our family after the age of 18. So that's kind of how we started. We didn't start because God called us into it. We didn't hear a message at church, or we had always kind of wanted to add to our family, so we did. And we found our bearings with the Lord in the midst of the journey, and really had to dig in with God along the way.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you come up? I think all of us could relate to the title of your devotional, Battle Weary. What brought that about? And can you tell us a little bit about what that's about, that book, and how you were inspired? I'm guessing you were inspired by fire.
Yes. So I wrote Battle Weary Parent as a battle weary parent, and it's my 2nd devotional. So I had already written a devotional called Ready or Not, which it was designed to help families really think through the cost of what it meant to be a foster or adoptive parent, and just kind of walk through what God's heart is in this, and sometimes sometimes we come into this journey with the ideal, and I wanted a devotional that was really the real deal about what this looked like. So that was Ready or Not, and I had already written that. And we had 4 daughters at the time that Battle Weary came about, and we also had our niece and nephew living with us. We had guardianship. So we had a house full and a lot of big issues. And I felt like I was dying on the vine. I had gone to CAFO not too long before that, the Christian Alliance for Orphans Conference, and heard Karen Purvis for the first time ever. And literally just the connected parenting, TBRI, was for me like a bottle of water in the desert. And I couldn't get enough of it, but I was still, I mean, even having the tools that I didn't have before, having new tools, having new strategies, I still felt like every day that I got up was another day that I was consciously making the decision to stay in the game, and consciously making the decision not to just say, this is over my head, I can't do it, and walk away because it was hard. And I really remember begging God to let it be a 10-day devotional or a 15-day devotional, anything but 30 days, because I was having to live through every one of them. So Battle Weary really came about because I had to dig into the Word and dig into what God had called me to do and why I was in this, and have some very real conversations with Him.
Yeah, I had told you one of my favorite quotes that I recently came across in the devotional that I was doing, and I'd like to read it because I just feel like people are going to be able to relate and get it. And I'd love to use it as a springboard for just you to share more on whatever's on your heart tonight, and wherever you feel like led to take us down. We're willing to go. So here's the quote. It says, "It's incredibly easy on this journey to lose sight of compassion in the midst of the daily grind of family. Quickly, we can become so focused on the frustrating issues of school, behavior, routines, and correction that we forget the pain and loss that brought our children into our lives. And it's especially easy when you're battle weary and in the very midst of crisis. In our children's most desperate and hurtful moments, we absolutely cannot afford to lose sight of the inner struggles and pain that they are battling. In nearly every instance that the Bible records Jesus as being moved with compassion, healing follows. For our family and our children to experience healing, we must allow our hearts to continually be moved with compassion towards them. Where compassion leads, healing follows." I just love that, and just think it's so pertinent to today. When I read that, just this last week, I was like, yes, I mean, that's so relevant for right now.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that in this moment in time that compassion for ourselves has to be given to. We are living in a moment in time where the entire world is experiencing trauma. And not only are we suffering from the uncertainty, you know this as a TBRI practitioner, uncertainty breeds anxiety in our brain. And there's not a single one of us that has certainty right now. There's not a single person on the planet. So I think that there's a low-level anxiety that we're all kind of walking in. And the first place that we have to have compassion is with ourselves, to just tell ourselves that it's okay to not be okay for a moment, and to let a few things go, because it's so easy for us to, in moments where we feel like things are out of our control, we try to grab everything that we can control. And what that may look like is your kid's distance learning schedule right now. You're just trying to control that and make it work the way you think it should work. It might look like just your dirty dishes that you're just trying to control because you need something in your life that you can control, so it's all out of control. And what happens in these moments is we feel so vulnerable and we feel so anxious, and that without realizing it, and sometimes realizing it and not being able to stop ourselves, we project that onto our kids and our family. And right now, with all of us living in close quarters, and there's really no routine of escape that we have, it's really easy for that to become a vicious cycle, that our uncertainty and our anxiety breeds their uncertainty and their anxiety, and before you know it, it's a snowball rolling downhill, and no one can stop it. So I guess the first thing that I would say is we often talk about having compassion on our kids because where they've come from, and we do need to do that, absolutely. But we also have to have compassion on ourselves, and we have to understand what's going on inside of us, and understand that God would have us in this moment, first of all, draw closer to Him, and really dig into relationship with Him. But then second of all, He would have us prioritize our spiritual relationships within our family and our actual connected relationship. There's never been a moment that connection is more important than right now. And it has to come before the math assignment. It has to come before the dirty dishes. It has to come before whatever it is that we prioritize as yesterday's normal, because today isn't normal, and we may not get back there for a long time. So, and even when we do get back there, it's going to be a totally new normal. So I think I would just say I would just encourage you to loosen up on yourself, because I know for me, I'm holding myself to this high standard sometimes, and it's hard to live up to that, and just being able to say, I'm just really tired right now. Or I see Abby wrote in here, feeling depleted, needing tools for dysregulation and needing alone time. I don't know if she means dysregulation for the kids or for ourselves or for both, but I know that I found myself feeling dysregulated, and twice this week I've had to go take a nap and just say, I've got to reboot myself. And for some of you who are single parents, that might not be possible. You might not have the flexibility to take a nap, but what can you do in your schedule to give yourself a little bit of a break? And is there an area in your daily routine that you can lighten up just a little bit and recognize that you don't have to control it so tightly, and maybe, just maybe, turning on Disney Plus for an hour in the middle of what would normally be the school day is exactly what the doctor ordered, because you do have to give yourself a breath and take some time. And it's hard, because I see right under that from Carolyn that her adoptive daughter has a hard time with transitions. So there's a need for some structure. We live in a both and right now. There's going to be daily the opportunity for both and to have the need for structure and need to enforce it, and have the need to loosen the reins. And sometimes it might come right in the middle of your structure. Sometimes you might just recognize, okay, everybody's dysregulated right now. We were supposed to have this done in 30 minutes. We're 45 minutes into whatever it is, and it's not happening. So you're just going to just slow down, go sit in front of the TV, make an ice cream sandwich, whatever you need to do at that moment, but just give yourself that flexibility.
I love that. I love that. And you also mentioned prioritizing connection. What does it look like to prioritize connection when you say that? Because I know it could get lost sometimes in things, but I've never heard someone, I guess, put it that way. So I'm just wondering what's behind
Well,
it.
I think sometimes we get so caught up. Many of us are working from home. And so you're trying to get whatever project you're working on done, and your kid has come in 4 times and interrupted you, and you've had to tell them, not right now, not right now, not right now. And that's probably fine in that moment. But as soon as that moment's over, going to that kid and sitting with them and prioritizing what's important to them. And it may not be important to you, and it may make dinner about 30 minutes late, or it may mean that you're showering a little bit late, or whatever it looks like. But what is important to them at that moment, and truly engaging with that. And when I say engaging with it, I'm the world's worst at yeah, I hear you, when I'm not hearing that, I'm thinking about something else. So engage with full eyes. I see you, I'm here with you, we're doing this together. It might also mean learning to play a video game, learning Minecraft, right? In this moment, sometimes we're going to have to move to where our kids are. I read something not too long ago that really stood out to me. There's not a person on this call that couldn't probably tell me where they were on the morning of 9/11. Every one of us can remember where we were when we first heard the news. We can remember how it felt when we saw the towers fall. We can remember what it felt like as we watched President Bush make all of the different stops over the course of the following days. We can remember those moments. This is our kids' 9/11. And they're going to remember not just the event of this, but they're going to remember how they felt. And the people that are driving how they felt there's no other choice, but it's us, it's their family, the people that we're literally sheltering in place with. So that's why I would encourage you to prioritize connection and make this a memory that 15 years from now, when they're talking about it as young adults, that they say, you know, I remember the COVID-19 virus. I remember sheltering with my family, but I remember puzzles and board games. And I remember my mom sitting down with me and learning to play Minecraft. And I just remember having fun together. And one of the things that I've done recently is look at TikTok with some, and just laugh at some of the videos that are on there. And you know, now we've got just inside catchphrases now that came out of something like that. So that's what I mean by prioritizing connection. That really right now the most important thing is relationships with those that are closest to us.
Yeah, I love that. You saying that this is their 9/11, that's huge. I got goosebumps when you said that, because I do. Not all of us on this call remember that, and it was heavy. And the idea that this is heavy for our kids, and you comparing it to that, it just brings it to reality. Like, yeah, you know, we can make a difference in the way that they perceive it this time looking back. I know last time we talked about on Replenish, maybe doing things that you could remember that you came through this time, like this hard time together, and we painted rocks as a family and put those by our front door, just so looking back we can say, yeah, that's something we did during a really hard time, and like look at us now, like look, we came through it okay. So I just like what you're saying, you know, encouraging people and myself to think of it in that way. Like, how do we want our kids to come out of this? Because it's so easy to focus on us right now and what we're feeling. But you saying that this is their 9/11, that's huge.
Well, and I think we have to acknowledge, again, back to it's a both and. We are having big feelings as adults. I mean, yesterday for me, I'm pretty, I'm not going to say non-emotional, but I can take a lot and I can navigate a lot. And yesterday I was on the verge of tears almost all day for no apparent reason, but just what's going on. I couldn't take another article of somebody else sick. I couldn't take another update on the virus numbers. I couldn't take anything because it just felt, it all came home to roost for me yesterday. And I had big feelings. And I think we have to acknowledge that we do have those big feelings. And because we're the adults in the house, we get to control things. And often we control them out of our big feelings rather than recognizing that our kids are having big feelings too. And for many of them, I've heard from foster and adoptive families that the empty store shelves are triggering because you have kids that have experienced a lot of hunger and seeing no groceries in the store and hearing the conversations of their parents about that has triggered them. So our kids may not know how to verbalize their big feelings in the same way that we can, but they're having them too. And being able to slow down a little bit and recognize that and maybe add more just fun connection into your day. And I'm reading this comment from Rachel. It says, I'm engaging so much with my 13-year-old son, ADHD, just to get his schoolwork done, that I have no energy to connect with him on other stuff. I may be the unpopular one saying this right now, but if you're engaging with your kid so that they get A's and B's in this season, I would lighten up a little bit. If they pass, they pass. And I think we're crisis schooling now. We are not traditional schooling. Rachel, you're probably not even a homeschooler on a regular day. That's another way that you can just lighten up. Do the best you can, and don't be afraid to say to the school teacher, this is too much. There's no way in our home right now that we can handle all of this. This is what we were able to give today. I think that at this time, we're just going to have to recognize, and I honestly think the school systems are going to recognize that. At the end of the day, they're going to be like, man, we just did the best we could, and we all got through it together.
Right. So what about, I love that, because I'm hearing that actually from a lot of different places now, that school is a big issue, and I'm hearing a lot of people saying, let it go, let it go. The goal is just to, like you were saying, just get through this school year.
Yeah, and I think you have to ask yourself, 15 years from now, the Thanksgiving table conversation about this time, what do you want it to be about? And that's ultimately what's most important, because I don't remember what my English grade was in 4th grade at this point in my life. And it doesn't matter in the scheme of things. I mean, once I graduated high school, the next thing that mattered was my trade or my college. What I did from 12th grade and under didn't matter. Except to get into college. So, and for most of our kids, unless they're trying to get into Harvard or Yale, decent is decent, right? So I think we put a lot of pressure on us because ultimately what we're measuring is not our kids' success, it's our success as their parent. That if they can get A's and B's, then we've done our job. And you know what? At the end of the day, we're in a time where if they get a hot dog at least once or twice a day, we can consider ourselves a success on those days in the middle of this. So just lighten up a little bit on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself, and don't let others be hard on you.
I like what Melissa said, just reminding us that kids can't even learn when they're under stress. So if your kid's stressed out, they're really not learning anything, maybe regurgitating, but thanks for that reminder, Melissa.
Yeah, and I see Rachel's response that she says, I hear you, but the schoolwork actually gives structure and something for him to do. Absolutely. Where it works, work it. Where it doesn't, loosen up. And that's what I'm saying. It's like for some people, for some of your kids, that kid needs some structure. And for others of your kids, they need a little bit less structure and a little more downtime because they are also processing this tragedy. I mean, compounded on top of the losses that they experienced before they came into our family, they have just lost normal again. They've just lost their social friends again. They've just lost a lot of things that they've learned to depend on. So they have a lot of loss that they're processing and walking through right now as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to everybody who's listening right now, if you want to type in your questions for Pam in the chat, we're going to go ahead and try to move over to some Q&A time. But I'll start off. Pam, how do kids who, they're going through a lot right now, but they don't have the words and the insight to see their own maybe anxiety, and it's coming out. I'm hearing, like I heard in some of our support groups this last week, just the anger and the that kind of energy that's coming out, just the need for the controlling and not listening and disobedience and all of that. What could you say to help a parent who's really struggling with some high emotions? Their kids are from 0 to 60 in a second right now. How do you help those kids come to a place where they could even hear and feel some safety? Because they're just so on the edge. They don't even recognize their own fear and anxiety. It's just straight anger.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say whatever the language is that works for your kid, whatever it is that helps them to see that you see them. So it might be, sweetheart, I understand that you're so frustrated with me right now because I didn't let you have your 15th cupcake. I'm so sorry that you're feeling that frustrated. What can I do for you? What can I do now to help you feel safe that you're going to get a cupcake tomorrow? Whatever that language is, sitting down, I found for me, and for a lot of women, we tend to be wordy and lecturers. So I found for me to sit down, to put myself on a level where my kid is and just say, I know you're angry, and it's okay to be angry. Because see, we tend to say, stop being angry. You have no reason to be angry because you're not getting the 15th cupcake. It's the 15th cupcake. I'm not giving that to you. Like that's what's going on in here, rightfully so. But what needs to come out of here is just, it's okay to be angry, because we're a world in trauma, and every single one of us are in the 5 stages of grief. We're all grieving loss right now. And so we're going to move from anger to bargaining to depression to acceptance and we're going to bounce around. I shared about my yesterday. I was in all of those quadrants within an hour. And I just recognized that's where I was. My heart is broken. My heart is broken for the world. My heart is selfishly broken for everything that I've lost in the midst of this. All of our kids are adults. We have 2 that live with us, but the rest of them we can't see right now except on video. So there's just a lot that we're navigating, and you have to recognize that your kids are doing that as well. And sometimes that anger has nothing to do with you. It doesn't even have to do with the 15th cupcake. It has everything to do with the fact that I'm scared. I don't know what's happening right now. Everything is different, and all I have is my anger. And Karen Purvis used to say something that really resonated with me. She said, sad often looks like mad. And I think for me, reminding myself that anger may actually just be sadness and disappointment and loss and fear, helped me to level myself down in my response so that I could take a breath. Or that sometimes the response to that might just be, what do you need right now? Do you need to go to your room and play your video game for 30 minutes? And here's the thing, so many of these things we put in, this is a privilege and this is not a privilege, you've earned this and you've not earned that. We put them in these buckets, and especially in this season, we need to back away from a little bit of that, because sometimes your kid may need to get lost in Minecraft for 30 minutes and literally reboot the system. Yeah, but I would just handle it with deep connection and leveling my response out.
I love the reminder about Karen saying that, sometimes mad is really sad underlying that. That's a great reminder. It looks like we have a few more questions. Everyone in my family, including hubby, bio kids, and adopted, are grieving big losses. So much for mama here to handle while I'm letting go of my own losses. Family fun has helped to do something silly or funny every day. Yes.
Yeah, and we used to have a term for that back when we had a lot of kids at home and they were young, and we would have various levels of correction happening at the same time, where somebody might not have phone privileges, another person might not have seeing friends privileges, or whatever. We would have weekly what we called a pressure cooker release day. That we would totally release the pressure cooker. It didn't matter what anybody had done, even if it was an hour before that we had been lied to. We were going to go have ice cream and go to the park and be silly. Now you can't go do things right now, but we were going to be silly and have fun and just engage and just laugh and let go of everything. So I actually love that suggestion and practiced it a lot in our own family, that sometimes you just need to goof off. We had water guns in the house back when our kids were home, and every once in a while we would just spontaneously start a water gun fight.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun.
And I'll say one other thing that I did. I was the classic, sometimes randomly, I would go hide. And I mean, I had old teenage kids, and I would just go hide somewhere, and my kids would sometimes spend an hour trying to find me. And it was just to be fun, just to let the pressure off the pressure cooker.
And that's a win-win if it took them an hour. That's an hour of me time.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. I'm writing different things down that I love that you're saying.
And I think Ernie, I posted here, playful engagement is what we're practicing in our home. And that's what I'm talking about. Just playfully engage with your kids. At this point in the game, I'm trying to remember that a soft answer turns away wrath. And I'm trying to remember that no matter how frustrated I feel, or no matter how much I want to give a direct, and this is the way it is answer, to just almost 100% of the time right now to purposely be soft in my response, because everything is heightened right now. And if I raise my voice, what 3 weeks ago may have just been, oh, mom's a little frustrated right now, today may sound like a scream, because everything is so heightened right now.
I love that. Purposely be softer. Yeah, that's a good one. So what about oh gosh, I had a question and I lost it in that last good comment that you had about purposefully being soft. I think it was along the lines of kids that are struggling with our stay-at-home thing, who are older and are choosing not, like, don't want to, and just leaving the house. And how do you address that while keeping people safe within the house, and also how extremely frustrating that is on the side of the adult who understands what that really means to them health-wise?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because, I mean, I'm not going to discount that there are some kids that are just struggling so deeply that their struggle is going to come out in just direct defiance of what's going on. I think a healthy conversation with that kid would just be to sit down and just try to understand what they are feeling, because they're probably feeling very isolated. And out of that sense of isolation, they're feeling out of control because they've lost their normal. So again, backing up and trying to understand the why behind the what, and finding out what you can do, asking, what can I do to make this easier for you? It's hard for me too. I know it has to be hard for you. What can I do to make this easier for you? And for some parents, that might mean that they're going to have to loosen a little bit of social interaction through social media. I know that some parents haven't really, for very good reasons, tightened down. But we have to remember that the stage of development that our teenagers are in, especially, that stage of development requires of them developmentally that they develop community outside of family. So, and outside of especially the parental figures. So right now what's happening is something that they're very naturally wired to do is being taken from them. And if they don't have an avenue to do that, they're going to be driven to harmful ways of expressing that. So I think just recognizing that it's normal for a teenager to be driven that way, that it's actually healthy, normal, healthy for them to be driven that way, and finding ways that you can empower that within the structure of shelter in place is a healthy conversation.
I love that. So it looks like also on the other end of the spectrum, we have people with preschoolers. So how do we do that as parents? How do we explain that? And do we explain that to preschoolers? Or do we just kind of do what we're doing and maybe not really address the scary aspect of what is going on and just, do life as we're doing it?
I would think that even for preschoolers, there's a sense of them understanding that there's something different. And I think you have to have the conversation. You just have to have it on their level and be able to acknowledge that, there's a virus out there. I'm not a preschool mom, but I'm sure there's some really great resources and that can be shared with this group. I will make it a personal note to see if I can find any and get it to you. But I'm not a believer in keeping things from our kids. I'm a believer in letting them in at their level. You're not going to review the coronavirus dashboard with them every morning, but you are going to talk about having to stay safe, to keep ourselves safe and to keep others safe right now so that we don't get sick. So I think that you can't, there's no pretending that something's not wrong. It would be like us trying to pretend that 9/11 didn't happen, right? To go back to that example, there's no pretending that the New York skyline was changed forever. Right. And there's no pretending that our world is dramatically different right now and for the foreseeable future.
Right. And they're going to feel that tension that we have, that underlying tension, whether we're really good at playing it off or not. They're going to feel that and they're going to pick up on that. I agree. I actually work at a preschool, not right now, but it closed due to all this, and the kids know. The kids recognize they're old enough to, I think, understand that a lot of people are getting sick right now, and that the best thing for us to do as a family and every family is to stay inside until the sickness goes away. And so we're going to have a lot of fun time, a lot of us time. I think I agree that it's best to let your kid know on a child level.
And also, I would encourage you too, in times like this with your kids. I mean, we're all using Zoom right now, and we were using it from a work perspective or using it from a support perspective. Let your kids have Zoom play dates or FaceTime with their other friends. So yeah.
I actually had one of my son one of them is in 6th grade, and a friend put on a murder mystery through Zoom, which I thought was really cool. So I'm going to look that up, and I'm going to try to do it with my teen and his friends organize a murder mystery. So there's a lot of creative things going on out there where our kids can still have some interaction and fun.
And Netflix rolled out virtual movie watching. You can, if you've got a Netflix account, you can share a link. You can log on to watch a movie, share that link with others, and they can watch it at the same time as you. And there's a chat box, very much like what we're doing here, that comes up so you can talk about the movie.
Fun.
Or the show, whatever. Mm-hmm.
So let's see, a couple more questions and then we will wrap it up. So one about siblings. As a parent, how do you keep the kids supporting and making each other feel safe when they don't have the usual space of their own, just with the siblings irritating each other and, sibling fighting? How do you do that when you're all on top of each other?
I had a lot of that.
Yeah, 8 kids.
Because we had so many kids. Yeah, so it's important that they have the ability to have a voice and be able to say when they're feeling frustrated and need some alone time, and for that to be okay. And for you as a parent to enable that. And I think that you're going to have to be creative in how you create that environment. Maybe again, it goes back to extra time doing whatever it is that they individually love to do alone, so that they can recoup and regenerate their own energy. And one of the ways that, TBRI teaches puppet, right, in dealing with younger children. One of the things that I did with my teenagers when I learned the Empowered to Connect and TBRI principles is, because I taught it, I had a bunch of puppets at my house. So at one point, my kids were just on I had one nerve left and they were jumping on it with their arguing and bickering that day. So finally, I picked out a lion and a bear puppet, and I handed it, one to each of my daughters. And I said, I don't care how long this argument takes. You can argue all day long, but you have to do it in puppet voices. You can't use your regular voice anymore. And it lasted like 5 minutes after that, before they were laughing. So be creative in how you deal with it. Again, this is a time that conversation and connection is critical. So you have to ask your kids, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What can I do to help you right now? Because what's coming out of them as frustration at a sibling might just be their own anxiety manifesting in some way. So you have to be really open about what's going on, and you understand everybody's going to be frustrated. I'm going to ask you if you're okay, what's going on. I'm not going to dive right into you shouldn't right now. I'm going to say, why are you, what's happening, what's going on, and just make that a practice. And then I would also say to parents, especially if there's 2 of you in the home, that you should take some shifts, meaning that you need to give each other a break for a couple of hours. And for single parents, I know we're social distancing, but I don't know if you have a neighbor that you trust or somebody that's close by that can help you get some kind of a break like that. But it's important. And if you don't have that, then maybe an earlier bedtime is in order. Maybe they play that video game an hour before bedtime and then go to bed. So then you've given yourself an extra hour of me time. So be creative on whatever you can do to get them engaged in something so that you get some time and space too.
Yeah, I like that. I know at my house at between 7 and 7:30, we kind of wind it down and I'm done. I'm not a night person. I'm the morning person, and I'll get up at 5:36 and be ready to go. It's TV time when it's 7:30, and I let my son watch whatever show for an hour, and we usually come to agreement on it. It's like America's Got Talent or America's Ninja Warrior or something like that I can kind of tolerate too. And we call it a day early. And that's kind of my time too, my downtime.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that most of our normal daily routine rules don't apply right now. I think that easing up even on those things, like whatever your bedtime routine is, to allow for extra time for you is absolutely what's called for right now.
So Pam, let's move on. I have a few ending questions that I want to ask you. And also, I just want to let everybody know that we're going to do an after party today. So last time I felt like things just kind of shut off like abruptly. So I just want to invite you from 5:30 to 6, an after party with me. Pam's going to go on and leave the conversation. It's a couple hours later where she's at, so we need to let her get on with her evening. But she's going to leave us with a few discussion questions. And those of you that want to stay on, I just want to invite you to that after party where we can continue to talk and discuss some of the things she talked about. And we can put, depending on how many people stay in the conversation, we can put each people in groups according to the ages of their kids, so that we can just talk with similar moms and dads who are where we're at. So I wanted to invite you, let you know that's coming up. But so Pam, I want to ask you, what brings you joy?
Oh my gosh. I mean, really what brings me joy is watching my kids thrive in life right now. I mean, all of my kids are 24 to 28. We've been through some really tough stuff as a family, and there's been moments that with my kids and almost all of my relationships with them that I wondered if when they were 30 we were going to have a relationship. And my kids are thriving now. We've got good relationships. Not that there's not still issues, but again, I look back at when they were 14, 15, 16, and some of the things that I thought were just huge deals at the time, they weren't. And so, yeah, that brings me joy, is just being in relationship with them after everything we've been through and watching them thrive in their own lives.
That's good encouragement for us. I always love hearing people when their kids are on the other side of things, and just gives you such hope knowing that no matter how hard it is, that someone else has been walking that path before you. And so thanks. I'm glad that was what brings you joy. If you could say one thing to your younger self when you first started this adoption journey, what would it be?
I think I've said it a dozen times tonight, is loosen up. I would tell myself over and over and over, lighten up. You're taking it too seriously. And for me, I catastrophized way into the future. Like, oh my gosh, if I don't correct this right now, they're going to be a 25-year-old liar in prison. Well, I just made it out into this great big deal. And yes, we need to think about that stuff. We have to raise responsible citizens on this earth. But, drinking the Coke out of the refrigerator and lying to you about it isn't going to end up in prison. And I wish I could have gone back and just told myself just to let up a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. Just chill out. That's good to hear, even right now, What foster adoption myth would you like to just blow up right now?
That they should always be grateful. I think we come into it, and I guess in the same vein that it shouldn't be hard. We come into this with a set of expectations, and it's typically those expectations that do us in if we're not careful. God didn't design any following of what he's called us to do as believers to be easy on purpose, because our journey as believers is to be made into his image and to be more and more like Christ, who actually went to a cross for us. So it's not supposed to be easy. And our kids, they won't have the words for gratitude into their mid-20s and later. I mean, it's just, they don't have the capacity for that and or the words for that.
Yeah, I know. I'm still having epiphanies of gratitude towards my own mom now, even,
Yeah, and I guess I would say one other thing on that vein is that don't expect that the healing that they need is going to come just through you. I'm 47 years old, and I have a childhood that's just full of childhood trauma. And I'm just now dealing with some things as a 47-year-old from my childhood. And I remember one of my daughters, she was engaged to be married. And when she got engaged, we probably spent more time doing trauma work than we did wedding planning, because it brought out all kinds of things, just the idea of getting married. And one day I overheard her say to somebody, she said, there's one person that's really been able to help me deal with what's happened in my childhood, and it's just really helped me heal. And I'm over there like, and listening. And she said it was her fiance. And I'm like, wow. Wait, what? He's not up with you at 3 a.m.? And it was just a realization for me that God's going to use a bunch of people in a bunch of different situations in our kids for them to heal. And it may not necessarily be while they're in our home, that whatever that issue is gets dealt with.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I just appreciate you coming on with us and being willing to have a conversation with us and just share your experience, strength, and hope.
Thank you. That was my pleasure.